If you think about it, in any other business, you wouldn't push for deregulation. In fact, it was actually one of the things that that Labour used to lambast the Tories for. Like, do you remember when, firstly, free ports, Labour not a fan of those, but also the city, I think, is the big one, because Boris Johnson was arguing for some time, we've got to liberate the city. We've got to, Liz Truss wanted to lift caps on bankers' bonuses and basically just like free them from all the red tape that was put on them after the financial crash.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you think about the city, and I think most people would acknowledge that there is so much, that there's basically like a real pinch point of like, the city can crash at any moment, right? You're playing with, actually, it's quite dangerous what it can do to the UK economy if the city is left to run riot. For some reason, that logic is not applied to AI. And AI, I don't want to be like, God, I feel like someone's going to use this clip like in like 20 years time or whatever. I'm like, it's really dangerous, but it can be.
Yeah. Like that's it. It's not that we're Luddites, like,
hey,
it's just
for yourself, pal.
You know what I mean?
I would like to think I'm not, but it is just strange, and it feels dated the way they're approaching it. It just feels like it's kind of like a lack of real substance or idea about how to, because it's all within the context of growth as well. So like, you can, I don't know how you can close that circle of, we're going to become an attractive place for tech companies to come and invest in new technology. Yes, okay, you've got the university sector, you've got very highly skilled people. But for the millions of people in the UK that are already out of work and they've already pitched ideas to get them back into work, I'm not sure how highly skilled AI technology is going to be the way to get people back into work.
They're relaxing the visas on that as well. Did you hear that? That bit?
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I was like, you can't in the same breath be like, we've got millions of people out of work in the UK. By the way.
So we'll bring in highly skilled labour instead and continue to have people out of work. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's growth, but it's continuing the stagnation of before with a different sector,
It's interesting because the IPPR did a report into how many job losses AI could bring, and it could be up to 8 million people could lose their jobs because of AI. And obviously with any new technology, people do lose their jobs. Jobs do become obsolete. But the IPPR were warning, without a plan, this could be very bad news, especially for women, because women tend to occupy the jobs that AI is most likely to replace. So that's a lot of back-end office worker and administrative roles.
There's definitely big risks for jobs. And we at IPPR actually did a report on this. And we estimated that sort of in the next 5 to 10 years, 8 million UK jobs could be at risk. So we have 34 million jobs in total, and 8 of those could be at risk. If we just, use AI to automate people, and it can, existing AI is good enough to automate quite a lot of tasks. So that's definitely a risk. And what needs to be done is that, unions, but also government and civil society needs to say, we don't want this technology to just be used to automate jobs away and cut costs. We want this to be used in a way that makes jobs better, and that perhaps allows people to spend more time on the face-to-face interaction, on the human touch. I mean, Keir Starmer did say that today, saying this is not about automating people, it's about giving doctors and teachers more time to do their actual job. I think that's the positive vision. And if we all push for this, I think it's possible. I think there'll still be disruption. So we estimated in our report that so-called back office jobs are most at risk. So personal assistants, for example, a lot of their tasks could be at risk from being automated. Maybe not all of these jobs can be saved. And so we need to think about how can we invest so people can transition into new jobs, again, that are meaningful. So we'll need quite a lot of more attention from the government to push, to help people transition if their jobs get automated. So I think it's both, it is a big risk, and we should be alert to it.
I mean, 8 million jobs. I mean, Starmer said there's only going to be thousands generated by this investment into AI. Do you think that there's enough focus on that from the government?
Like those 8 million jobs at risk, that will play out not tomorrow. And I think the government's talking a lot about, immediate jobs that could be generated from, investing in data centers that run the AI. So I think these are jobs that could come online very, very soon. Whereas, a lot of the office jobs that are at risk. And by the way, we found that women are more likely to hold those kind of jobs. So there's an interesting gender story here, and we need to be alert to that. I think those risks will take a bit longer to come through, maybe more in about 5 years' time. So we have a bit of time. We shouldn't panic to think about this. But I think, yes, all governments, I think, are not worried enough about the job impacts, and we should build the monitoring institutions that really look out for what's happening in the labor market with regards to AI. We should build them now and really come up with strategies. Hopefully it won't be necessary, and we'll have enough jobs to go around, and that'd be great. But we should have in the drawer some strategies that what if this actually does hit very hard? How are we going to invest? How are we going to support people to transition into new jobs? I think that's the next step. I think the government is right to say we need to invest in AI and help it make jobs better. But kind of the next step is to be, how do we address the risks to jobs?
There's currently no general statutory regulations of AI in the UK, and the UK government's approach to AI regulation has been a pro-innovation approach, and that contrasts with the route the EU has taken, which is a more active regulatory approach which categorises AI into risk tiers. Is the divergence away from the EU the right approach for the UK?
Yeah, so that's right, that the EU has gone ahead with one of the most comprehensive schemes to address risks from AI. So making sure the models are safe and they don't discriminate, and that, like another thing it says is that you should always be able to question a decision made by an AI. And it should be able to, the company that makes a decision with the AI should be able to explain to you why the AI has made that decision. And currently, we don't have that type of regime. It's not that we in the UK don't have any regulation. That you have whatever the FCA regulates AI in finance and make sure people don't get tricked by some kind of financial scheme that's run by an AI or sort of managed by an AI bot or something. So we do have some regulation, but it's true that we don't have something as comprehensive as the EU. This is actually in train. So the government is looking, or is currently developing a bill that would do this. There is this big question of like, how risk averse do you want to be? Do you want to ask companies to really be really hard on their testing and transparency regime? There is some criticism by industry that's the EU approach is too restrictive, and I think the UK will be a bit more liberal when it comes to this. I actually think, so that would be my recommendation as they put this into law. I think the EU approach is actually pretty good. I think asking companies to be quite transparent about what they're doing with their algorithms, and even if that means they're not, putting models out left, right, and center as soon as they're ready, I think it's a good thing. I think AI development is so fast that a bit of slowing down and making sure things are safe, I don't think that's anti-innovation. I think that's good for trust and good for making sure things work the way we want to. So I think the EU approach, despite having some flaws, is actually a pretty good one.
Given that, and given that transparency and that sort of thing is so important, but if the UK has this more liberal approach, could it attract more investment to the UK? Could it be seen as a Brexit bonus, a Brexit benefit?
I mean, I would be surprised if regulation makes, if the UK had a more liberal approach, if that would make a big difference in terms of how good we are on AI. The main reason why we're currently in one of the top producers of AI is talent, is some really good AI universities, a pretty good startup landscape, and today's plan by the government will do more on this and make it easier to come for AI talent to come to the UK, and I think building on that and building on strengths in AI in life sciences, which UK is also quite good. I think that is more important than that.
We are very stupid. We can be replaced by computers. I think we should get onto this trad wife thing quicker. Because what the trad wife trend? Because if our job gets replaced, and we've already ruled ourselves out of marriage or traditional wife marriage, we could be. Well, what are we going to do?
Join a commune? I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I was going to ask you about this actually, because one thing he did say was that there was going to be this new hub that was opening in Liverpool. It's got £2 billion worth of investment, and it's going to provide 1,000 jobs. But 1,000 versus 8 million feels.
Definitely. And I think that the way to...
sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it is just like, oh my goodness.
And I think the weighted job losses being hurting women more, it's kind of unsurprising to women because I think they've been at the brunt of a lot of the harms that we've seen already from AI, whether that's deepfakes or a lot of, kind of bot accounts. In fact, my friend Georgina, who works at TLDR, she had her voice audio deepfaked by a far-right account on YouTube, which has millions and millions of views. And it's her voice reading a news report, which is very inflammatory and very far-right and full of misinformation about immigration and migrants. And she wrote about it for The Guardian, but this is an area where the law hasn't caught up with AI, and audio deepfakes are a legal grey zone. She asked Meta to take down the video. They didn't do it. That was even before their announcement about
why didn't they
fake news. Not sure, she didn't get a response, but she reported it as AI content and it wasn't removed.
This is what I find frightening about these, Meta and X. There's such huge organisations that actually they're quite impenetrable. So if you do have, if you think about that in terms of the grand scheme of what's going on Meta, no wonder they don't have time to review that. Do you know what I mean?
But is it a question of time, or is it that they're just moving into an era of being unaccountable?
Yeah.
Because I think I would argue they have the resources to be responding to stuff like that, because it is a pretty serious thing to do that, right? I mean, it's literally fake news. But the reason it's so much worse is because we're also in a climate of AI where A, that can be made, but B, it can be shared widely online with zero to no consequence or correction, especially with the fact-checking stuff on, like you said, X it's there with the community notes, but that takes a while to catch up anyway. A lot of times you'll see these things and it takes days for that to be added. And then when you go on now Instagram and Facebook and the various platforms that Meta owns, we're going to be seeing the exact same thing, which is inherently going to probably hurt older people who are more susceptible to it because they didn't grow up with social media and have more of a clear eye as to what to spot.
Laura just talked about she mentioned deepfakes there. Do you think that there is a specific impact in the LGBT community that we're not talking about?
I think deepfakes are, yes is the quick answer. I think the reason being, a lot of what we're discussing benefits the right. And what the extreme and far right is wanting is to weaponize AI in a way that benefits their own belief system, i.e. discriminatory or bigoted. So, for example, one of the contentious issues within the right is drag queens around children. There is no evidence that this is a problem. This is not a proven issue. But something like AI could be deeply concerning because you could fake someone who's very prominent in the community saying actually something has happened that hasn't, that then goes viral online, and suddenly it's fact to some people because not everyone checks these things. We know this. Something that I thought was really interesting on deepfakes is about a year ago, not to bring up my favorite Taylor Swift, but a great example is about a year ago, she was the victim of this with really violent and graphic imagery made of her doing stuff I'm not even going to speak of because it's so vulgar, one of which was viewed 47 million times.
Wow.
47 million times, that one image. Of those 47 million views, it's safe to say a fair few million of those will have believed that was completely real and still do. You know, we don't all have access to the same amount of news and same amount of things. So I think it impacts a lot of minority groups, women being one of them, LGBTQ plus people being another. But I think it's something we should all be worried about.
It's I don't think that the regulation is there or being utilised or being developed, especially today. I mean, about 3 or 4 times Starmer said, like, I know that people will be concerned about the speed or the pace of change, but I don't think that we should be prioritising safety. I mean, yeah, I guess it does sound a little bit wet to go, we need to tread with caution. But when you point out, you know, things like this, he used examples of AI can be used to identify a blood clot and prevent a stroke. I'm like, sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
It can identify potholes. Great. I wish I'd been given my question because I really wanted to go. So if it identifies the pothole,
Run me through the pothole situation.
Who's paying for it afterwards? Because okay, there's quite a lot of data already with councils about where the potholes are. They just don't have the money to fill them.
Yeah.
So it's
We all know where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.